And we are recording. Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Metamorphosis from Trauma to Thriver podcast, where we discuss all things surrounding anxiety, depression, dissociation, PTSD, and mental health. I'm your host, Sharon Ann. Today, I'm joined by our guest, Jasmine. Jasmine is a sobriety coach specializing in NoFap, porn, sex, and masturbation. She's a former NoFap addict and graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, Concentration, and Addictions. She empowers women who are suffering in NoFap that they can break free from the addiction cycle through holistic methods. Jasmine, welcome to the podcast. It's awesome that you're here. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience about yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me, Sharon. I'm so happy to be here. Well, pretty much you mentioned in a nutshell about my background, but I would like to add that you can say I have two niches right now. I am an addiction recovery coach, but I'm also a relationship coach, which I just began doing it recently.
That is so awesome. I'm happy for you and your desire to combine the two. That is just awesome because it's a greater reach to reach people. And I know everyone struggles with the relationships too.
Yeah.
So to get the ball rolling, how do you approach assessing the severity of a client's sex addiction? Like what factors determine what's most appropriate for intervention?
So basically, when I'm working with a client who is suffering with porn, sex, or masturbation addiction, I take into account a several factors, including the frequency and duration of the behavior, which is like how long they've been doing it and what is their longest streak or milestone of sobriety, and when exactly they will fall into their relapse, and the level of disruption of the addiction it causes in their daily life, and any co-occurring mental health issues, which is if they're suffering with a particular addiction. In this case, I specialize in no flat porn, sex, masturbation. So do you have this? But what type of mental health issues do they have? Do they have depression? Do they have anxiety? Whatever the case may be. I also consider the client's motivation for change, because change is needed with the clients. Because as a coach, I can only guide them, present them suggestion, advices, what they can do. But the change starts within them, and you need to have that motivation and or determination. And I also need to consider their level of insight into their addiction. Is very important for me as a coach to understand, does the client understand how bad is their addiction is? Because once you are addicted to anything, it doesn't have to be no fluff addiction, but once you're addicted to something, basically you have imbalances in your brain, and that's going to take time for it to change, where you're able to do your daily tasks regularly. So based on this assessment, I work with clients to determine the most appropriate intervention, which is just to make sure before they actually do a full sessions or multiple sessions with me, I make sure whether we are very good for one another, since I'm just a coach, not a licensed counselor or therapist. So if you a very good match with me, I can do like coaching and general counseling combined together. And if I feel like they need to be in a network of others who are like-minded individuals who are addicts, then I would have like a support group in that place. And if you need both one-on-one coaching and like being in the group setting, then I will also combine of those approaches. So ultimately, the goal is to develop a treatment plan that addresses the client's unique needs, that supports them in their journey to recovery.
That is very, very awesome. I like how you cater to the needs of your clients and how it's like you're saying either you change or you remain the same, that growth is evident and that no matter what you're going through, there is help. There is hope. I like how you say that. And like not one approach fits everybody. That's so true.
Yep, it is.
In what ways do you navigate the delicate balance between addressing the client's needs and concerns?
So, in regarding to porn, sex, and masturbation, it's very important to strike a balance between the client's immediate concerns and exploring the underlying issues. So, what this means basically, the client's immediate concern. Like, obviously, we always have something going on in the now moment. So, I will try to ask the client if we're doing our beginning of the session, each session basically, I will always ask them how's things going with them, is there anything going on with them, and then let's try to get that out of the way, because it's very important to take our time to understand the exploring and underlying the issues of the addiction, because that's going to require a bit more time than resolving the concerns they have in the now moment. So basically, in the very beginning of the first session, I start by establishing a rapport with the client, because it's very important for the client to get to feel who I am as a coach, where they can feel free, not judged, or feel very bad about themselves, or feel shame, guilt of sharing their concerns in regards to this type of addiction. So building the rapport is very important because it will help them to identify their most pressing concerns, such as the patterns of the behavior of their addiction or how it is impacting them in their daily life. So once we have addressed these concerns and the client feels comfortable, we gradually move into exploring deeper issues. So obviously, addiction often stems from trauma, and it's very important for me as a coach to figure out what are their trauma that actually trigger them in the now moment from the past, how we can remove it in the now moment where it's not an obstacle or a hinder to create or manifest their future goals. So in a nutshell, is basically for me to examine the client's past experiences, their relationships, and their beliefs that may be contributing to their addictions. And the beliefs often has to do with limiting beliefs, because oftentimes we always have some type of perception that somebody may have told us we are XYZ, we are like this, like that, when reality, deep inside of ourselves, we're not like that. So I take a compassionate and not judgmental approach to ensure the client feels safe and supported throughout this process, especially in the beginning of the first session. And obviously, I do this throughout the rest of the 12 sessions I actually offer for them. Now, it's important to remember that change doesn't happen overnight, and it takes time to uncover and address underlying issues. Because as we know, once a person is addicted to anything, that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes years for it to be developed. And once you have developed that addiction and you understand, oh, I have a problem addiction, uh, you basically have to change your mindset now, and you need to transform your life, which is you need to be committed, have patience, and take the time to change the behavior addictive cycle into transforming your life, which does takes time. And I'm not saying that once you acknowledge you have the addiction and you need to stop it, I'm not saying that you will not have any relapses or you'll not feel like any hardships. You will, but the whole point is basically you need to take one day step at a time, do everything baby steps, don't push yourselves, try to do everything balanced. So by striking a balance between the issues they have, it can help them to understand how to overcome it in the long term. And basically, this is how in the summary, or what I mainly emphasize in each session as a reminder, how I can guide them in the recovery journey in a meaningful and sustainable way.
That is awesome because I know trust is paramount to anything. Trust is paramount to any relationship. I like how you like go out there and says I'm non-judgmental. I don't point fingers, and that's really a great way to develop trust. Just to listen, to build rapport, to just be there. And I like how you said about baby steps, because the little things lead up to the bigger things.
Yeah, that's correct.
How do you handle resistance from when clients discuss sensitive topics, whether it's like sex addiction or relationships?
So pretty much, I just recently got into a relationship. So let me just dive in a little bit regarding that. The part of the reason why I kind of add on another niche in my coaching services is pretty much I sometimes will receive like ladies, they will have the type of addiction and they are married, but they need guidance on what they can do to feel better in their relationships and whatnot. And obviously, yeah, I'm still being an addiction recovery coach, especially since I'm also like a freelancer for a company in the United Kingdom. So for both, for like addiction recovery coach and relationship coaching, basically, if I face any clients who is really resistant through the therapeutic process of me coaching them, I approach it with patience and understanding. So when clients become resistant or defensive, it's often a sign that we have touched something that feels vulnerable or uncomfortable for them. And I try to create a safe and non judgmental space for them to explore their feelings and experiences. So the way I go about it is that I use my active listening skills. I validate their emotions, that I hear them, and I try to make them to know that I understand the reason why they feel such and such. And if needed, if they feel like they don't want to dive into a particular subject, I don't force it upon them. I let them to feel calm. Like oftentimes ladies will often cry, so I let them cry. And then if they feel like they don't want to continue the conversation, then we move on to a different subject. And then maybe during the session or later on in the future sessions, we may need to go back to it because it's very important. That way I can create their treatment plan or help them to manifest their their future goals. So if the client continues to resist, in a nutshell, I just change the shift to a different topic or take a break from the discussion. And basically, end of the day, it's about just respecting the client's boundaries and pacing the work to ensure they feel supported and empowered in their journey to recovery and or their relationship issues.
Yes, because I'm also learning, like in my own recovery too, that not all resistance is bad. Sometimes resistance is like a step back. Sometimes resistance is saying, I'm not ready. It's like a traffic light. Sometimes resistance is needed to like say, can I trust you? Are you okay? Is it all right to divulge my story?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. 110%.
Yeah. And then also, I like how you talked about like also working not just with men, but with women, because women also struggle with addictions too. It's just that you don't hear more about it with women, you hear more about it with men. It's like it's so stigmatized to ask for help and be like, hey, I have this addiction, or hey, I'm addicted to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, unfortunately, the society stigma is still, present today. But women really are human beings. They're not aliens, and they really do need the help. Even though with the men with the no flap addiction is wide open, it's easy for them to talk about it. But yeah, women do suffer a lot in silence.
Right. And since we're talking about the subject of suffering and silence a little bit, can I ask you what role does shame play when it comes to relationships and addictions?
So pretty much, um, you can say maybe for both addiction and relationship, it basically the shame has to do, I don't know, from my experiences working with clients on these two issues, it has to do something with their past. So obviously with addiction, when a person is reaching out to their addiction, they're escaping. So it's like a coping mechanism. They're escaping from the reality of their issues. They don't want to face it head on. Now when it comes to relationships, pretty much if you feel like in regards to a woman, feeling shame. Oh, I'm shamed. I can't talk to my husband. We had a fight. And then if she has the addiction, that's going to weigh on top of her shoulders. So she may feel shame, guilt, worthless, all negative traits about herself. So basically, for both sides, it can cause like a cycle of trauma to come back. Because obviously, like I mentioned before, addiction often stems from trauma. With relationships, yeah, a person may manifest or attract the wrong partner just because something happened to their past, which oftentimes have to do with trauma. And then for both cases, they will actually feel self-loathing, isolation, hopelessness, guilt, shame, all types of negative emotion. So basically, for the clients, when I work with them, I help them to understand where these feelings are coming from, and I need them to understand like how to go about it in a healthier way. As in, if these are the feelings you feel about your inner self, you have to think of positive traits to overcome them. And again, throughout the session, I'm always being non-judgmental towards them, and I provide a support environment for them where they can help me to create or tailor their plan for them to how to go about these negative traits they're thinking about themselves to positive. So again, it's all about changing the mindset from negative to positive, because once you're very a positive person, regardless you have the addiction or regardless you have issues in your relationships, if you're constantly in the high vibrational setting of feeling very powerful about yourself, feeling good about yourself, feeling wholesome, most likely you will manifest and attract many goodness happening in your life. But again, this takes time, patience, and commitment as well. So by addressing the shame head on, we can break the cycle of, in both cases, the trauma and the support the clients in creating a more positive and fulfilling lifestyle.
Yes, I do agree with you on the shame aspect and how it all begins with the mind. Just like everything, it's all about like right brain, left brain, retraining ourselves to do better. Completely agree with you. And shame's a big one. Shame keeps us in the victim mentality. Shame keeps us in bitterness. Shame keeps us saying, poor me, I can't do better, when in reality, we can. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's correct. And awesome.
You already elaborated on like how you helped your clients, but how do you navigate the journey with them? How do you build the personal relationship with them?
So basically, we're building trust and navigating on both aspects. The addiction and relationships is a very delicate and complex process because obviously, again, trauma can impact a person on how to build trust. So the way I approach with my client is that I help them to understand the impact of the behaviors on their loved ones, and then I make them to realize the harm they have caused. So what I'm trying to say, particularly with the addiction aspect, I'm not trying to say with the clients, I'm not trying to make them feel really guilty or feel shame, feel bad about themselves that they are talking, as an example, they're talking poorly to their mom or to their father or to relatives, whatever it may be. I'm just trying to make them to understand that, with this addiction will actually make you behave in a different way where deeply inside of yourself, you don't want to behave in such a manner, but you can't help it. So I try to make them understand why they're behaving in such and such manner and how we can go about it. And again, pretty much, the mindset is very important. It also correlates to, the negative feelings and the negative thoughts because it can influence the person. And I oftentimes will explain to my clients as a great analogy is basically if you're often surrounded by good people who are using good words, which are good seeds. Once those seeds or good words goes to your ear, it'll be planted to your brain. If you're constantly surrounded by good people, uplifting people, your behavior or the influence of the behaviors and their thoughts will influence you, and you will copy like them. Likewise, it can be said the same thing, that if you are constantly surrounded by bad people who are constantly using bad words, which are bad seeds, that bad seed would be go to your ear, plant into your brain, and you're constantly in this type of environment of low energy, bad people constantly using bad words or using bad behaviors, you will be influenced by them. So basically, I have to make the clients to understand how to develop empathy and how to use effective communication skills and how to break the cycle of using, bad words, bad behaviors, and certain social situations or wherever the case may be. And this helps them to express feelings in a healthier way, always with their mindset and their behavior. And it can help them to listen actively if they have a partner or they have family members or they have friends, whoever it may be. And then it can help them to create a commitment in the recovery journey in regards to addiction, and how to build authentic friendships or find their friends, or how to save their marriage if it's possible to do so. And so for the addiction part, oftentimes, obviously, the main goal is basically to help them develop a relapse prevention plan and to identify and addressing the relationship triggers as well if they have that. If they don't have the addiction, then we're just focusing on addressing the relationship triggers, what's happening, why they're not able to manifest real friendships or manifest the right guy in their life, their prince, or if they can save their marriage. So it's important to recognize that healing, in both cases, it takes time, and that they need a lot of support throughout the process, which I presented for my clients. And again, it all has to do with patience, self-awareness, and willing to engage in the hard work of working on the addiction part and relationship aspect as well.
Right, because when it comes to like addictions or anything, you have to be willing to face reality. You have to be willing to say, enough is enough. I want to do better. You have to be willing to just go out there and just say, I know I meant for success. I know I meant to achieve this. And like as you said, really believe in yourself. And I like how you said that you want to go out there and surround yourself around positive people, because it sounds cliche, but it's like our vibe attracts our tribe. Our vibe attracts what we believe about ourselves. That is so true. And I like how you mentioned like there's always support, there's always community, but you have to find the right people. You have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah, that's true. And I know particularly since I have like over 5 years experience working with recovery addicts, it's very common for them to often say, like, I often struggle finding like-minded people, particularly in my area, which I do emphasize, and I have been there before as a former addict. But end of the day, it does take time, patience, and commitment. Maybe right now, you may not find a friend or your friends, whoever it may be. Don't basically end of the day, just don't give up. Just continue doing the tools, which I like to call self-healing techniques. Just keep using them, and soon, eventually, when the right time at the right place comes, it will happen automatically, naturally.
Very well said. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in this field, collaboration is key. Like we're always searching for insights from others and always wanting to learn from others. So how do you collaborate with other professionals to get like insights and to provide care for your clients?
So as I mentioned, I am like a former addict and no flop addiction. So whatever I had done in my past, I pretty much try to present it in front of the table with my clients. Because as a coach, like I mentioned, I'm not licensed counselor or therapist. My role is to support clients in the recovery journey by providing guidance, accountability, and encouragement. So I do not necessarily uh, collaborate with other professionals, I just bring in my academic background and my own personal experiences, what I have did for myself in order to maintain like a long-term superiority. So when I'm helping with my clients, I try to create a comprehensive care for them. And if I notice that a client could benefit from additional support, such as a therapist or a specialist, I will encourage them to seek out these type of resources on their own. But if they're really lost or they have no idea how to go about it, then I always offer that I'm able to help them and give them the correct resources. They just need to tell me like who they're looking for specifically, like in their area. Uh, would you like a male doctor as an example or female doctor? What is your budget? You know, they need to tell me all this information. That way I can do my own research and give it to them. And at their own time, once I present the information for them, they can do it on them. But I always tell them that eventually you need to see these specialists because this is going to help you to maintain long-term sobriety. So at the end of the day, I'm here just to empower the clients to take charge of the recovery and access the resources they need to achieve lasting change.
That's really, really great. I like how you're client focused. When it comes to
Yeah.
self-care, how do you ensure that it remains effective in your own life? Because with self-care, it's like we're always catering to the needs of others, and we talk about and we preach about self-care, but we're not always following through ourselves as coaches. But how do you ensure that you're getting self-care?
So for me, as a coach, to ensure that I'm not often being drained out of energy, I often mention multiple times across my social media accounts and people who know me one-on-one. And I think I may have shared this with you before. Reiki really helps me a lot, especially it helped me like a few years ago to understand the addiction, like how to go about it, because stress is one of the common triggers for any type of addiction a person has an addiction of. So Reiki for me is very good because it helps my body to stay calm, relax, and not be stressed. And also a reminder that we're just living in the now moment. We're not living in the past and we're not living in the future as well. And besides Reiki, breathing techniques are also awesome as well. So there are two types of breathing techniques I actually do for myself. So one of them is basically I slowly breathe in and I hold it for 5 seconds. And then I release it out for 5 seconds. The other way is basically I do mindfulness and meditation. So basically I'm being closing my eyes and I'm in a quiet place where there's no distraction, and I breathe in by focusing on my breathing and being mindful of how I'm feeling inside of me and in my surroundings. So these two type of breathing techniques, it helps me to know more about myself and to revive my soul as well, because when you're breathing in you and breathing out, it helps to feel much more calmer about yourself and to know who you are, and it can also help you to decide what type of decision you would like to do.
That is powerful because I've been hearing a lot about breath work and I haven't really implemented like the way I want to, but I have like every now and then. It is powerful. It really does calm you down. And in my opinion, it's just as powerful as like EFT, NLP. They always say there's power in the breath. You don't know that till you try it.
Yeah, I agree. I used to be very hesitant during the breathing techniques until I decide, okay, let me just try to be consistent with it. And like I say, within 3 days, at least 3 days, 7 days, I saw a huge difference. And that encouraged me more to actually be consistent with it. And at least I try to imply it at least once a day. If I have time, I do it twice a day as well.
That is really awesome. I'm glad that you had like the effective tools that really work for you.
Yeah.
Is there any final words or advice you'd like to share with the audience battling relationships or sex addiction?
Never give up. there's always support available for you. And even though you may not have the now moment to make some type of investment, just know there are free resources. However, bear in mind, free resources has limitation. And eventually, in order to be resilient in overcoming the addiction and overcoming issues in your relationships, you had to be independent of yourself. You cannot rely on others. When you're relying on others, you're not able to create your future dream. You're not able to create what you want, or you're not able to express exactly who you are as a person, because you're going to be stuck in the past. People will drag you down, take advantage of you. So it's very important to be resilient and be independent and relying on yourself. At the same time, effective communication skills, have maintaining like good behaviors and manners will help you to maintain long-term sobriety and to build, friendships, finding your own friends, resolving issues in your marriage will help you along the way.
That is such great advice. Jasmine, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights with the audience. I hope they really benefited from today's topic. It was a really good one.
My pleasure. I'm happy that you invited me today, and I hope the same that the audience has benefited from this podcast as well.
If you'd like to have Jasmine back on the podcast or there's a topic you'd like to discuss, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Until next time, everyone, bye bye. And Jasmine, once again, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.